What up, guys? Welcome to the Chewjitsu podcast, episode number something, something or other. Doesn't matter, but glad you guys are here. Today, we're going to talk about I'm going to share a stat with you that I'm pretty happy about. That I think is pretty. I don't want to say important, but it's noteworthy, and we'll talk about why it is, and then we'll also talk about 7 different rules or commandments to follow if you want to train safely, if you want to improve your jiu-jitsu, make your submissions better, and keep longevity in mind. So basically 7 tips, seven commandments for safe and sustainable training. And if you do these right, again, you can mitigate a lot of the injuries associated with different techniques. Now, again, you can't eliminate injuries in jiu-jitsu. Ultimately, jiu-jitsu is one of those things where it's like 2 cars driving on opposite directions down the road, right? Like, no matter how much you work on making everything safe, things just happen sometimes, right? Accidents happen. But nonetheless, some really useful ways to help be safe in your gym and train and actually get a lot from your training. And we'll talk about why. So hopefully this will help you guys out with your training in 2026. Big thanks to our sponsors for helping make this podcast happen. Charlotte's Web CBD. They're one of the OGs in the CBD space. Been around for a long time. If you guys have never checked them out, they have a really cool story. There was this young girl named Charlotte. And I like sharing the story because I think it's interesting. They had this young girl named Charlotte who was having some certain illnesses that were supported by CBD oil, which was not really a thing that was widely available at the time. So they started making CBD oil, helped her out, was a benefit, and that's where the business sort of started and grew from. And then everything that they've done since then has kind of come with the mindset of, would this be good enough for Charlotte? Meaning, is the product safe? Is it helpful? Is it, something that's actually good, right? Because a lot of times people they'll slap their label on something. It's not, they don't know what the hell's in the bottle, and just like, whatever, we're just trying to jump on this bandwagon. Like, I remember back in 2016, 2017, everybody was trying to get in the CBD market. It was like, I remember companies were sending me stuff. They're like, hey, we'll put your logo on this, right? And but you didn't know it was in the bottle because it's not regulated by the FDA. And Charlotte's Web is one of those companies where they third-party test their stuff to tell you what's in there is what's in there. But anyway, they have a lot of good products. Obviously, the CBD oils and things like that, which are great. I like them for sort of the recovery side of things, for supporting my recovery. I like taking it at nighttime to help me support my sleep and rest, and just sort of dealing with the sports-induced inflammation and just overall stress that we deal with. They also have some CBN supplements. They've got functional mushroom products like reishi and lion's mane. I like the lion's mane one a lot. Tons of balms and rubs for your sore muscles. Lots of cool stuff. If you guys want to check them out, you can get 30% off with the promo code Chewjitsu30 at their website at charlottesweb.com. Also, if you guys want to support our sponsor, Epic Roll, they make a lot of cool jiu-jitsu gear. I'm actually getting some stuff made from them again here in the future. I'll have some new designs coming out. And if you guys come to our Jiu-Jitsu Open competitions, we'll have some gear made from Epic Roll. I love their stuff. There's a reason why I get all my rash guards in no-gi gear made from them, because I like the fit of it. I like the quality of it. And Matt and the team over there does a great job. And so again, they have good products, good designs, good customer service. And if you guys want to check them out, go to their website at epicrollbjj.com. They've got everything from gis and rash guards, shorts, t-shirts, whatever you're looking for. And you can save 20% off the order with the promo code Chewjitsu20, CHEWJITSU20, for 20% off the order at checkout. Also, if you guys want to support the podcast directly, you can become a member of our Patreon, which again has a lot of different perks. If you guys want to check it out at the website, patreon.com. One of those perks is, again, content that we add up or that we add to the library every week. And some of that is pretty useful stuff, such as stretching and mobility routines specifically for jiu-jitsu people. I talk to so many jiu-jitsu people, especially a lot of older people, who are just tight and stiff. Tight shoulders, tight hips, the whole deal. And they don't really have a routine that they follow. And again, Eugene did a sequence for some of the jiu-jitsu campers that came to our gym, and it was to help with shoulders and hips and things like that, among other areas. And so it's a short 20-minute routine you can follow, and it will help loosen up your body so that this way you feel better. And again, 20 minutes is nothing. You can do it after your shower. You can do it after a training session, and it can make a world of difference. I would tell you that a nice, simple post stretch after post-training stretch after the gym, after you're done training, when you're all nice and warm, is huge for like feeling better, so you don't feel like you're too broken up the next day, where you get all stiff and rigid. For any of my guys, I'm going to get back to, I used to be really good about leading the class through a post-training stretch. I'm going to do a little bit more of that coming up this year because it's something I need to get back to. I was doing it this past weekend, was just getting some deep stretches. Like, man, it feels so good. I need to do more of this after training sessions, not before, but afterwards. So if you guys are in my gym, then we'll be doing more of that. But otherwise, you guys can get the access to the mobility routines that Eugene's put together, among other things, at our Patreon at patreon.com/the Jiu-Jitsu podcast. And again, you support the podcast you're listening to week after week. Also, no thanks to, it's mine. If you guys want to check out my daily email that I send, you'll have to excuse me, guys. I may have some fumbles there. I'm a little under the weather. As many of you guys know, when you have a toddler, stuff just floats around the house a little bit more. And for whatever reason, me and my wife picked up some funk this week. So like sore throat, aches, the whole deal. And so don't feel too bad, but kind of keeping away from everybody. Because in this instance, just as a quick side note, for any of you guys that train jiu-jitsu, when you start getting sick or you're not feeling good, again, sharing is not caring in that sense. You don't want to bring that stuff around. You want to stay home, even if you think you could train, just stay home and heal up. Because again, it would be better for you not to run yourself ragged anyway. And you also don't want to get everybody else sick. But anyway, that said, if you guys would like to get my daily email and also receive an ebook that I give away for free along with the video series, check out my website at chewjitsu.net/join. When you join up, you'll get access to my daily email that I send out, which again, thousands of people love the damn thing. They read it every day. And then if you like that, you'll enjoy it. And then also too, it comes with a free ebook and video guide that goes through ideas on how to get more focus with your jiu-jitsu and to get more improvement with your skill from training sessions and open rolling sessions. A lot of you guys don't have the ability to sort of manipulate your training like coaches do, but you have the ability to manipulate your open rolling and get more out of it. And it'll show you how to do that, or at least give you 12 ways you could do that. So check it out at chewjitsu.net/join. Guys, with that said, let's jump into this podcast. Here's the stat. I was mentioning that I have a stat that I'm happy to share about, or I'm happy to talk about. Basically, I've been training jiu-jitsu since 2003. And in that 20 plus long year journey of grappling with sweaty humans, I won lots of competitions. I became a pro MMA fighter. But even with all that intense training, hard rolling, everything else, I've never injured anyone with a submission in training. And I've also never been injured by a submission in training. Now, I've accidentally injured people, and I've been accidentally injured myself, right? So it's gone both ways, just not with the submission. And this is one of the reasons why, I'm 40, I'll be 41 this year. And after 20 plus years of wrestling mileage on my body, I feel pretty damn good. I see some people sometimes, it's like this badge of honor. People talk about how jiu-jitsu's wreck their body and this and that. And I'm like, well, maybe you. But I've been doing this stuff for 20 some odd years. I feel great. My body feels amazing. Again, I'm still relatively young, but when you think about training for 20 plus years, and you're at the point where, at least for me, I'm at the point where in most athletic things, people are kind of at the point where they're retiring. I'm still going strong. I feel pretty good. And again, I think this is in part one of the reasons for this is because of the way that I've trained with submissions. Because I tell you that a lot of the people that came before me in the gym, like in the generation of jiu-jitsu practitioners that came before me, a lot of them got jacked up from eating submissions, fighting out of them too long, and not practicing them safely at times. And so with that said, I want to share 7 commandments, 7 rules to follow to hopefully help you get more longevity so you can train longer and still make improvement with your skill, become better with submissions, and avoid injuries, because injuries suck. And so with that, guys, let's get into it. The first one, the first commandment, if you will, is thou shalt remember. I like using the old language. Thou shalt. Thou shalt. We're using biblical language. Thou shalt remember that none of this frickin' matters. Simple as that, right? I talk about it all the time on this podcast with you guys. Practice doesn't count. It's not the world championships. It's just a training session, right? And this is one of the most surefire ways to ruin your overall experience in jiu-jitsu and to turn something that should be fun into this super serious thing. And when it does, this causes people to fight way too hard, way too long than they should have, and they should have tapped earlier, right? So you'll get people that will, you know, fight out of stuff too long. They'll risk injury just because they don't want to give up the tap, right? Jiu-jitsu is a game, and then again, in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't mean much. It's a game, and the tap button is the reset. You cannot be afraid to press the reset button. And so, number one, thou shalt remember none of this matters. And I always like sharing that one. That's just a generally a good lesson for jiu-jitsu, but especially when you're talking about fighting out of a submission and you think that this moment means a lot. Now, if you're competing for, you know, like a big competition or something like that, maybe it does matter. Maybe you do want to risk possibly letting something get popped a little bit in order to win, right? That's fine. Not in training though. You don't want to do that in training. That's stupidity.
Yeah, we've talked to so many high level grapplers. Chris Wojcik is one that we talked to. That's like, and then he's trained with at B team, and when he came to B team, like he gets subbed a lot, and he knew like to get in these positions, he's got to really put himself into the fire and get caught and stuff, and learn how to get out of it and in a safe way. So a lot of the positional training, the knowledge in position, the experience, and you learn so much from the taps, and nobody likes tapping. I mean, shit, I hate tapping. And I think some of my injuries earlier on were because I hated tapping and I didn't want to, accept quote unquote defeat. But it's not really. Like, if you think of it as like, hey, it's a reset, not a defeat kind of thing, you're going to learn from it. Especially, yes, it does matter more. Like if, when we were ADCC, we saw guys that like they were like held together by tape. And I know that because one of the guys that was like working on taping of the athletes had reached out to me about taping. So I knew what he was doing to tape some of these guys. And they were like, people were really injured. They had barely, their legs or ankles barely hanging on and stuff. But that's a situation where it could be life-changing for a lot of grapplers. But in practice, if you let stuff get ripped and torn, even sprained, like over time, it's got a cumulative effect. So you want to keep your body together.
100%. And even like fighting out of chokes way too long, I mean, it's a very rare occurrence, but there are people that will have strokes or who have had strokes from fighting out of like where they're caught in a really deep choke and they fight out of it, and it creates, the dissection of the artery.
Yeah.
And so, again, there's a time to fight for it, and there's a time to go all out, and there's a time to risk. It's not in training though. And again, if you get caught in something, well, then you messed up. You should try to learn from it and get something out of it, and don't get too hung up on it. Again, just a quick idea. Number 2, commandment number 2, rule number 2: thou shalt catch fast and finish slow. So this is one of the things for making your submissions a lot better. Because, in the gym, to me, the ultimate aim with submissions is to demonstrate control over someone using technique and leverage and finesse, and not having to rely on like a quick, grip and rip type of situation. And so this involves catching the technique, catching the move, and then slowly finishing it, right? And so think about this. When you have the person, let's say it's an arm bar and the arm is fully extended. When that arm is fully extended, that is when the person is at the maximum danger. They're at the in range of their arm or whatever, their elbow and that sort of thing. That's where the damage could happen, right? It's probably not going to happen when you're just wrapping your arm around their bicep and their arm is bent defending, right? So you can catch the move fast, but what you want to do with your submissions is you want to be able to apply it with a slow control and be able to essentially make the person 1,000, 2,000 admit that they've been beaten. Now, there are some submissions that come on kind of quickly and they necessarily have that element to it, but most submissions do. Even heel hooks and things like that have the ability to, in training, to apply pressure and hold so that this person knows that they're caught. And like I was talking to the guys last night because we were doing some situational drills, and I told them, I was like, listen, if you guys, are faced with a situation where you feel like you either have to rip the submission really quickly or you're going to lose it, then just lose it and work on having better control. If it's a competition, that's great. Do whatever you got to do. But when it's a training session, we have to take care of our training partners because, again, the idea is that I can't get better without them. And if I'm ripping submissions, busting everybody up, that's going to be bad news. I'm going to injure all my training partners. I'm going to break all my toys, so to speak.
Mhm.
And so you catch fast, but when you're at the end range, you finish slow. And in most cases, you get to the point where you can hold for a good solid like 1,000, 1,000 to demonstrate control so that that person has plenty of time to tap. And by doing so, you're also getting better control because then you're able to hold these submissions longer. I would tell you that, I have a pretty high rate of submission in competition. And a big reason for that is because in the gym, I'm trying to execute the submission with the best control and finesse and all that stuff that I can. And I'm not trying to just grip and rip and muscle it through. I'm trying to catch it and basically use the maximum amount of technique that I can. And so again, that's what we're after anyway. So just, don't worry about trying to feed your ego by getting a submission. Think about trying to get skill from it, meaning, trying to use the most technique that you can to finish the submission.
Yeah, I think one of the kinder in a way, protect your training partners as well. Some of it's knowledge too. People may not know if they have more mobility than you may expect. So you go nice and slow and hopefully that, they do tap. But I've had instances where I've just let go. If I feel like somebody's, that's kind of where you set it aside. Like I know I've got it and maybe they don't want to tap, but that if you take it further, you're going to hurt them. So you may let go and go to something else or even control it. Like if you, like you were counting like 1,000, if you can get into position, a Kimura or even a leg lock of some sort and you're holding it and you have it and you're kind of looking at them and they're not moving. If you get caught in a submission and you can't get out for like 3 to 5 seconds, you probably need to go ahead and tap because they have a good, and submissions can be controlled.
Yeah.
Control. It's a position essentially, right? You look at like leg locks. We talked about getting in some kind of leg lock entanglement. It's really not your traditional mount, side control, guard, things like that, but it is a position and it can be used for control. So if you get good at controlling some of these other positions / techniques, I think it can be very beneficial. Like you said, Chewy, like to your game, like, like how to really control someone from when they're kind of in some kind of precarious submission or they're getting, ready to get tapped, how to control it. And you can, when you do get in a tournament, if you do it really slow, really well, when you get a tournament, you're going to have ultimate, control of that.
Yeah, I think of it, it's kind of like my old boxing coach. He would have us do some different drills, and he would have us hold our hands up higher than what they needed to be. And his thinking was, which maybe isn't true, but his thinking was, if we get tired, our hands will then drop to where they need to be, opposed to if they're down lower, right?
That's a great idea.
Maybe, I don't know, but basically, if you develop a strong technique when you get into a competition and your technique starts to, sometimes it gets a little sloppy, you still have enough technique to rely on so that even when if it gets a little sloppy, it's still damn good and still good enough to get the job done. Another thing is when you apply them slowly, sometimes you may not have things set up properly. So you may have a submission applied, a leg lock, whatever it is. And maybe if they're not submitting to it because you're applying it slowly and ramping it up and really trying to use good technique, you can talk to your training partner about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't think I have this on the actually I do have this on there. So we'll save this
save this idea. Yeah.
We'll save this next idea. Well, let's just jump into it then. We're gonna jump gears a little bit. And the next tip is that thou shalt communicate with your training partner.
Mm-hmm.
And so the idea here is that, many of personally my best submissions were perfected by chatting with my training partners after a failed attempt. Like, for instance, my arm triangle is a great example. I've got it dialed in these days, but back in the day, it was a bit shaky. And a lot of times it would end up, cranking someone's neck and, it wasn't working. And so I started a lot of times with different submissions. If I applied them and someone wasn't tapping, I would stop and loosen up and then ask them what they felt.
Yeah.
Or why they weren't tapping. And what that would do is that would then allow me to sort of get some feedback on it right then and there. opposed to later on after the session's over, or just squeezing harder and harder, that kind of thing. I remember another example was this: one of the guys in the gym has pretty good leg locks, and I put him in a heel hook, and I remember like putting pressure in the way that I thought should have made him tap, and I was holding it, but he wasn't tapping, and I said, "Hey, like, why aren't you tapping?" And he's like, "Well, because of this, this, and this." And he started showing me kind of the points that he was using to defend it, where basically he was just putting his hand in a couple different places that stopped me from being able to exert the kind of pressure I needed to in his knee to finish the heel hook. So even though I thought I was in the right position, I kind of wasn't. And so communicating with your training partners is important. If you're applying a submission and it's not working or whatever, you can ask them, "Hey, what do you feel? Like, why didn't you tap to this?" That kind of thing. It's important. That, I mean, you should do this with all your moves and stuff like that, but it's important. Um, a lot of my training partners that the good guys I train with, like when we use stuff on each other, we talk about it.
Yeah.
We swap ideas, and it helps make us sharper. So communicate with your training partners. It'll make your submissions better, especially when you're trying to sharpen something up. If you have a new one, or if you have a submission that's not working too well, just don't be afraid to talk to your training partner about it.
Yeah, one more point on that, just a little bit different angle on communicating with your training partner is just like if you have an injury or you're dealing with an injury and you're coming back, just let them know, hey, this is an area that I'm trying to protect, and that's a
Well,
great
sure.
way
Well,
to
I'm,
say,
I'm yeah, and I mean, I guess you could say like you could use that from the other angle of
yeah, absolutely,
not just not just perfecting your submissions, but maybe avoiding certain submissions that could injure you.
yeah. I mean, just like communication, I think is super helpful, and like I said, we're trying to make each other better and keep each other safe. Um, so yeah, I mean, I think communicating it's important. But again, like the one pet peeve of mine is like if you're coming back and you have a knee injury and you're like, hey, don't attack my leg or my knee, don't attack their leg or knee. Kind of make it equal playing field, makes it more
Sure.
fun for both grapplers there. Because sometimes you're like, oh, well, you can't attack mine, but I've got both legs I can go after on you, and it kind of makes it not the most fun for the person that's not injured. So just yeah, communication is just overall always a good idea.
The next one is thou shalt avoid those that eat submissions. So we don't really have a lot of these guys. We don't have any of these guys at our gym anymore. But they used to be a little bit more common back in the early days of MMA stuff. And again, this kind of goes back to people taking training too seriously. There was one guy I remember who, when I was this is training back at Highlander back in the day,
Okay.
and guy named Eric, and I remember rolling with him, and he basically, like, I remember putting him into like an arm bar, and he told me he doesn't tap, like he doesn't tap to submissions. I was like, oh, well, that's stupid. And I kind of even even when I was dumb and stupid and young, I always kind of refused to want to intentionally pop anybody's anything. So I just took his back and choked him unconscious, because and again, I would have I would have let go if he tapped, but I was like, well, I'm gonna just choke you, and then he didn't tap to it, and he went to sleep, had to wake him up, and then I was like, I don't really want to roll with this guy. It's like playing a chess game, and like you do checkmate on someone, and then they just keep moving their pieces. You're like, come on, dude, like, I'm trying not to hurt you, like, we're playing this game, and I just totally got the move, you're checkmated. I could break your arm or whatever, but you're still trying to go, and I'm trying not to hurt you. But, if you ever roll with if you ever find someone like that in your gym, just avoid them, because again, it gets to a thing where, what's their problem? Why do they think that they shouldn't, submit to people, or why are they eating submissions? And again, that comes back to the fact that they take it too seriously, or they're really focused on winning. And that's not the kind of person you want to train with when you're talking about putting yourself in vulnerable situations
Mhm.
where your arms are extended, or your heel's caught in a heel hook, or anything like that. Those aren't the kind of people you want to train with. And, obviously, you probably mention it to your coach too. Now, again, it's different sometimes where you might have a person who has a funky sort of part of their anatomy. Their arms might bend back a little bit. Their legs might be fairly resistant to leg locks, things like that. But assuming that, they're not that person, and they're grimacing and just eating a submission, you just go find a different training partner and avoid those people.
All right, Chewy. So brings up a few ideas for me. how much of that, and I think as a beginner, possibly for beginners, how much of that is a knowledge thing? Like, do you think, is it like, hey, it can't be an ego thing, like I don't want to tap, but it can also be a knowledge thing, is like it's a beginner. Like when I remember as a white belt, I've shared this story before. I got caught in an armbar
Yeah.
and I was a beginner. And literally, I stood up and the guy was hanging off my arm. Like,
Yeah,
and then my
yeah.
elbow was super freaking sore afterwards. But Mike, the coach at the time, told the guys, "Hey, let him go, let go."
Yeah.
He told the guy that had me in the armbar to let go of me. Luckily, because I was so stupid, I don't want to tap. I was just trying to shake him off, and he was
Mhm.
like, literally could have hyperextended and screwed my arm up terribly. But that was me not being. I think it was a little bit of both. Me being stubborn and me also not having a really clear knowledge of how much danger I'm in,
Sure,
right?
and I
So,
think in that situation, that was I mean, sure, maybe stubborn is one thing, but I think it's probably more of lack of education.
yeah, and because you don't like with an arm bar, it's one of those things where like, you kind of feel pressure, but like until they take it past the point of no return, it's not really terribly painful, especially if it's super slow.
I mean, well,
It's not one
most
of
submissions are not painful. I mean, they shouldn't
yeah,
be painful in the gym. You know,
yeah,
you're not waiting to feel pops or feel pain. You're waiting to feel pressure, which
yeah,
sort of precedes when things are going to start
right.
popping and
Yeah,
cracking.
and if you haven't felt that before, you're like, "Oh, it just feels like it's just tight," kind of thing, which is stupid. For me, it was probably I think it was some education. It was probably ego too, because like I didn't like losing. I was a competitive guy, still am.
Yeah,
I don't
but you're competitive for sure, but you're not. You've never struck me as someone who would be willing to exchange their arm being broken for a roll in the gym. So I think it's more of,
yeah.
because there is something about education to it. For instance, in the gym, since we teach more leg locks now, we've had less leg lock injuries.
Yes.
And one of the reasons why we had less is because people know when they're caught, when they need to tap, when they're locked into position, they have better defenses, they have better knowledge of how they should defend, and they also know that if they do get caught, when to start tapping out.
Yeah. Yeah.
A lot of people get caught in leg locks and they either defend in the wrong way, which can cause injuries, or
Yes.
they fight too long and then get something popped, opposed to knowing, oh, snaps, my leg's caught, I got to tap out. And again, I've heard so many people say, you know, with leg locks in particular, oh, you don't feel them until something pops. I'm like, that's kind of everything. Like when someone straightens your arm out, you don't wait until the arm's popping or feels painful. You just wait until your arm is like fully locked out and you
Yeah.
understand that what comes next is arm breaking, tendons popping. Same thing with your shoulder. You're not waiting for your shoulder when someone does a kimura to you to hurt. You're waiting for it to feel tight, right? That basically you feel that joint and those tendons basically just sort of getting tight and constricted, and you know that you're caught and you can't escape it, and so
Yeah.
you tap before it goes past that point. And so there is some of education, but assuming that they are educated, that's when you do it. And again, if it's a newer person, then obviously you educate them, hey, like you're caught in a submission right now. And to what you were talking about with Mike, back in the day, Mike used to always tell us when we were rolling with a new person, we weren't allowed to do arm locks. And I still
Mm.
kind of do that to this day. If I have someone's brand new and for some reason they're rolling a little bit, which doesn't happen much, but if for some reason they're rolling outside of situational, then it'll be one of those things where, hey, you can use chokes because people universally know that they're being choked, or strangled,
They
but
can't breathe, right? You can't breathe, then you know you're in trouble.
well, you feel that pressure on your neck, and you feel that all of a sudden you're starting to lose consciousness, right? Everybody feels that, but the worst thing that happens is you go out and someone wakes you back up. But an arm lock, you maybe don't understand that that's,
Yeah.
oh crap, I'm caught in an arm lock. Like, for instance, omoplatas. Put some new person in omoplata. They don't know what the hell that is. And so they could
Mhm.
easily hurt themselves by trying to get out of it the wrong way or doing something. So you have to educate them on, hey, what this move is and what can happen. But assuming that they have knowledge and they're still eating it, then again, be mindful of those people. Next one, thou shalt have a kill switch. What do I mean by kill switch? Well, a kill switch is normally a device that is installed on machines or cars, things like that, for emergency stops. And you want to have this type of thing with you when you're rolling. For me, anytime I feel anything weird, maybe it's a noise, maybe something just feels out of place, maybe someone moves the wrong way, like inexperienced people do. If I'm going for a submission, I begin to lose control and can't finish it safely, I just let go. And there have been times where I remember the other day, or about 2 weeks ago, I was rolling with one of the brown belts, and he caught me in a sweep, and my hand got caught underneath him, so my palm was planted,
Mm.
and he was doing a butterfly sweep, and he was rolling over top of it, and my hand was stuck in such a way that I was gonna have my wrist probably at the worst broken, at the best, definitely like hyperextended in a direction that wasn't gonna feel too hot. And I remember just going, "Ah," making that kind of noise, and his whole body just went limp, and we sort of fell out. He's like, "You all right, man?" I was like, "Yeah, dude, my hand got caught." That could have been an issue. That could have been an injury right there. But because he had a kill switch, and this is a technique, this is a sweep, this wasn't even a submission,
Mhm.
instantly just let go and saved me from having to be injured. And so the same thing with your submissions. Again, when you have your body locked around someone's limb or their neck or whatever it is, their health and safety is in your hands. And so if anything's out of place, if anything feels weird, or if you hear them make a noise, whatever it is, you want to be able to immediately release it. You want to have that awareness. So as you're rolling, you always want to be aware of the other person. And at any point, if they give you a signal that something's not right, if you feel something's off, you want to be able to just basically have the kill switch, turn everything off, go lip for a second, and just make sure that nothing continues so they don't get hurt.
No, that's great. Like usually the noise thing, like you hear like some kind of
Yeah.
inadvertent like a yelp or not necessarily a scream, but your body will make that natural sound. Like if something's pinching or caught, and I think when you listen to that, you kind of just stop what you're doing essentially,
Yeah.
and hey, you okay? You okay? I'm good. Let's keep going. You just kind of
Yeah.
reset from where you're at. Yeah, we've done that. You and I have done that plenty of times.
So many times. If I've rolled with anybody long enough,
Hun-
we've 100% gotten to some weird tangled up position to where one of us had to, make the noise so that the other one would stop before something got hurt.
Yeah, it's just kind of it's such an interesting thing, like how sensitive we become to those, like just knowing, and it's like knowing where your body is in space and
Mhm.
knowing kind of where to expect someone else's limbs to be on a
Yeah.
movement or a technique or a position. You almost like know, oh, you even do that yourself. Like I do it myself where like my hand, I notice my hand is somewhere and I quickly move it because I know I can't keep it there. It might get caught. You'll
Mhm.
notice that you even do that yourself as like corrective, techniques to protect yourself. But absolutely, like you're just so hyper aware of your training partner. It's just like this it's so cool to see that, like the kinesthetic awareness, just
Mhm.
where your body is and kind of proprioceptive, which is like knowing where your body is in space, where your limbs are in space is so interesting to see. And it just develops with time too, like mat time and just time, like knowing other people and how they move too, like getting used to their movement patterns, I think is really one of those things too. So that's why when you have really good training partners that you're used to training with, you kind of learn it. That's why there's sometimes your hardest training partners because they know your movements and you know theirs. It can
Mhm.
make it very challenging. And then you go against somebody at a tournament and they have nothing for you, but your training partner can stop every one of your movements. It's like it's because you guys know each other so well.
Yeah. And so then they make you better in because of it. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, to your point, I think about that all the time because, like, I can be rolling with someone and I can feel that their big toe is caught in the back of my gi or in my rash
Mhm.
guard or something, and I'll instantly stop and remove it. I can just feel that, right? And I always think it would be neat to go, like, if it was possible to feel what it was like when I was 18 and I did not have that same level of sensitivity developed in my body, because now it's like, I mean, my body's so much more sensitive to, like, in all the different places. I have a better feeling of everything, where my body is, where the attachments are, where it is in space, the whole deal. And so, that's part of the quote, the invisible jujitsu, right? Where you just have this sense of feeling, and it's not something that can be, you can't teach it. It's something your body has to develop. It has to learn the feeling of it. It has to have it there. And I've actually seen where people talked about, or where these people. There was one of the books back there I have. They were talking about the brain changes that happened with people who were involved in grappling sports, which in
Mm.
turn, like, it caused certain parts of their. Basically, they were talking about, one of the books is when people get into a particular type of skill, it can create like adaptations in the brain,
Yes.
right? When you've been doing it long enough. So they found like violin players, right? Like they would have this particular type of adaptation in their brain. And then I remember reading something where I think they were talking, it may have been like wrestlers or something, but they were, again, they're talking about that, this adaptation. And so, you think about it, we think of it as like a physical technique thing, but your mind and your body are not separate. And so this whole thing is happening where as you train longer and longer, you develop this just bodily intuition of where you are in space, what you're doing, where everything is. And it's so hard to explain that until you felt it. If I'm rolling with someone, I
Yeah.
can feel when they're off balance. I can tell you exactly how their body is positioned just by the way that I feel things. And it's a very interesting, neat sensation. But again, even before that's developed, you just always want to make sure that you can turn off the burners pretty quickly. So if you're training with someone, you can pull the kill switch and make sure that you don't get into some nasty position, cause an injury if you hear them making noise or whatever it is.
The book, I don't know if this is the book that you were talking about, but it's Peak. Have you read Peak?
Oh yeah, no, that's probably where it is.
Is that the book? I'm reading that book right now. I'm not that far of Grapplers, but the one that I'm maybe like
the
4
Grapplers
chapters
is
in.
about this one.
Yeah, Peak. Yep.
Yeah,
And he talks
this
about,
yeah.
I forget which part of the brain specifically, but they do his initial experiment was like remembering number sequences and how and they would do the brain checking, like doing the MRIs of the brain and how the brain changed. It's the same thing with musicians.
Yep.
And like things like that. So it's super cool how like the body changes and it adapts and the brain adapts and all that stuff. So I think Peak, and that's one of the books I've been reading. I think it's a really interesting book because a lot of it's the science on like learning, because it's crazy because they have certain, I think we as humans have certain limitations that we think we have. And then you have people that come in and just blow it out of the water, like in like memorization of these numbers. They just like, this guy could remember like, I don't know, 300 numbers or something, sequences or something like that,
Right.
something insane. And it's just like, because you start to categorize and
He would
like
chunk them together.
You chunk them in certain ways. Like you figure out ways to kind of coordinate or sequence them and stuff. And it's just such a cool thing. And just like a dance, we're kind of like,
How do you mean?
you expect certain movements, you anticipate certain movements. So you have almost like this movement memory of like, if I move this way, they're going to move this way, and I expect these reactions and these I don't know if that makes sense exactly, but like it's just one of those, you kind of sequence that, you anticipate certain movements are going to result in your training partner kind of moving a certain way too.
Yeah, it's pattern recognition,
Yeah.
right? So you the more you roll, the more you start to see the patterns develop, like dance or even like chess, right? So, if in chess you might develop like a strong opening, and you may use that opening over and over again. And when you do that, you start to recognize that people will typically react to that opening in a handful of different ways, and then you start to develop strategies off of that, right? And when you look at chess, they're seeing patterns. It's why, going back to the number thing, the person can chunk together several different numbers together into one chunk, so therefore they can remember more numbers. And it's why, a chess player, like a grandmaster, can look at multiple different chessboards, and as long as they were actually like real chess, like they were laid out in a way that is normal to an actual chess game. Because in that book they talk about the fact that if they took the chessboard and they just scattered the pieces at random, the grandmasters wouldn't be able to remember it effectively. But they said as long as it was actually done in a way that made sense, like a game that would have actually happened, as pattern that would have emerged naturally, they could typically remember like a bunch of different chessboards, and they could remember where all the pieces were because they're chunking them together. It's the same thing in jiu-jitsu. You recognize, it starts in the basic level, but even just like when you're learning if you're learning a technique. So if someone's showing you how to do an arm bar and they're like, grab this arm, grab this, whatever. Well, eventually that, like doing an arm bar, becomes like one movement, arm bar. Just it's that, right? It's one movement. And then you can, recognize multiple nuances to a position that you couldn't see before, because again, you can see the patterns emerge and you can see how their bodies are there. And then you can think about it from the actual rolling aspect. as you roll with people more and you use a particular position or technique more, you'll start to find that they have a handful of counters that tend to emerge, and you start to fight off against those I don't want to say predictable, but those patterns that seem to show themselves again and again. It's like if I roll with like a brand new guy, like a lot of times they're going to grab on the head and squeeze, because grabbing onto the head is a very common reaction for the untrained person. Um, and then if it's like a wrestler, they're going to leave their neck out, and there's different patterns that show themselves. That book, in case you guys are interested, it's a good book. It's by a guy named was created by a guy named Dr. Anders Ericsson and Robert Poole. Anders Ericsson was the guy who did the research which led to the creation of the 10,000 hour rule. That said, the 10,000 hour rule is bullshit. What he was talking about is that he actually kind of mentions it in the book, and he does it nicely. Malcolm, I remember thinking Malcolm Gladwell when I was younger was like, oh man, he's such a good like author, whatever. And if you actually go and look at like a lot of his books, he cherry picks stuff a lot to sort of like feed a narrative that he wants to create. And I've since sort of changed my mind on him.
Really?
And
What has he written?
So
I think I've read some of his stuff.
Outliers was one of the books that he wrote, which was talking about the 10,000 hour rule. And he talked about it like it was this magical, like all of a sudden you get 10,000 hours and voila, right? But what Anders Ericsson's whole deal was deliberate practice.
Yes, deliberate practice.
And he's like, it may be 20,000 hours. There's no, who knows, right? Like there's no specific 10,000 hour rule that he observed that people tried to pick out of his research. He said that, but his whole thing is it's about being very deliberate with your training, right? So, as examples, for instance, they had swimmers, and they found that the best swimmers, when they were in the practice and when they're in the water, they would be very intentional about feeling out their strokes and being very focused on like making sure they're constantly in like focused on what they're doing. Whereas the swimmers that were good, but not the best, they typically were just sort of daydreaming a little bit while they swam. They weren't being very intentional about their movements. You can see this in jiu-jitsu where people go into the gym, and I can tell you that most of my best students and the people that I meet that are the best, typically, like if you were to ask them, hey, what are you focused on working on right now? Like when you're just rolling, what are you working on? They know. And a lot of people just kind of come into the gym and they show up and they turn their brain off. Now, not necessarily the worst thing, because, if you're new, you're really not worried about, doing anything other than becoming the kind of person that goes to the gym, right? Like that's what you have to become. If you've been out of the gym for a while and you're getting back into it, then just get into the gym, that kind of thing. But at a certain point, you really have to be focused on what the hell am I actually trying to get better with? This is one of the reasons why I wrote my ebook that I give away on my website. At chewjitsu.net if you guys want to get it, which is, again, just to help you get a little bit more focused, because more often than not, when I talk to people who are hitting plateaus and they're hitting sticky points, it generally just tells me that they're not focused on anything. Because if you're focused on something and you're actually trying to train deliberately towards that thing, you're hard pressed not to see something, not to see some improvement, not to make some gains, so to speak. But it's a good book worth reading. Peak. Good book. So next tip: thou shalt tap fast and tap often. Probably nothing you not heard before. But again, I've always been one of these guys where even when I was younger and I took things too seriously, I always tapped out fast. And I know that I had several coaches and things like that who did not when they were younger, and like they had to have lots of different surgeries to repair issues like bone fragments and bone spurs in their elbows and stuff like that. Just stuff that sucked because again, they ate too many damn arm bars and knee bars and everything else. You only get one bucket of bones to take out on the ride, and you don't want to wear it out sooner, than it needs to by getting into gym wars that again don't matter. And, this is even something recently where, like, for instance, I've seen a bunch of these. You'll see someone get caught in like a sloppy neck crank, and the people get really pissed and freak out. Like there was the one video of the purple belt was rolling with a black belt.
Yep.
And the black belt got up and started punching him, landed into a triangle afterwards. And, the purple belt may have had a not great, like super well applied arm triangle choke. But even then, you just tap out to it. I mean, like for me, if I get caught in a sloppy neck crank, if I know I can eat it in the gym, or if I know I can eat it, I would eat it in a competition, but in the gym, I'm probably going to tap just because I don't want to get my neck jacked up. There was even another video one of the followers sent me where he's a blue belt and he's an older blue belt. And I didn't post this video because they sort of made amends and everything else, but he had his camera set up to like watch himself like train. And this like one of the coaches, black belt, they're rolling, and the blue belt, who's probably 50, he's applying it looks like he's like in a sort of a scarf hold position, and it's turning into a neck crank. And the black belt eventually gets out of it. And then when he gets up, I mean, he starts ragdolling this poor guy around, and then starts pushing him around and cussing at him, to like neck cranks and things like that. And I understand why people don't like getting their neck cranked on, because obviously it could injure you and it could affect you negatively, right? And it feels
Mhm.
like you're doing something, like you're applying a sloppy submission just to try to get the win over it. But regardless, you can just tap out. It's not a big deal. Just tap out to the neck crank, save your neck, no big deal, and just move on. And so again, just with your body, tap fast, tap often, and don't be afraid to tap out, even if it's maybe a little bit of a sloppy submission or something, because again, you want to save the bucket of bones. And as I said before, and I've said so many times on this episode, it doesn't matter. So if you get tapped out by a neck crank and on a random Thursday, nobody cares. Nobody's going to hang it over you. Like, it's not a big deal. So
Yeah, and I want to also point out that if you have some experience, if you're a blue purple belt and you have some experience and you're getting a type of submission where there sometimes are cranks,
mhm.
I would say like a Darce choke is one. Like if you don't get it clean, it can kind of crank on the neck a little bit.
I mean, even if you
So
get it clean, it kind of hurts.
it does.
It's
It's
a
not the most,
painful choke.
but yeah, but you can get it to where it's kind of sloppy.
Yeah.
And I've had it to where before, like I've gotten it and I'm like, they should be tapping with this amount of pressure. And if they're not, I kind of like stop and I'm like, are you okay?
Hmm.
Like, yeah, yeah. Or like, oh, it's kind of cranky. I was like, okay, so I let go. Because
Yep.
sometimes you think it in, but like you usually have an idea, like, all right, this choke should be getting the tap at this point. And some people can eat it more than others, of course. But like I just try to be aware too, because sometimes I've been caught in some cranks and I get kind of angry about it because I don't like to tap from. That's on me, of course.
No,
Um,
but that raises a good point, right? So this kind of goes
yeah,
back to the idea of communicating with your training partners, right?
yeah,
If you're squeezing on a choke for 1,000, 2 1,000, 3 1,000, and they're not tapping out, instead of squeezing harder, loosen up a little bit and ask them how they feel, what they feel. But to your point, let me ask you, get you to think about this. Why do you feel angry when someone puts you in a neck crank?
I just feel like, man, I don't know. Thinking about that way, like
It's
you should kind of be aware. I feel like we don't really play neck cranks in the gym. We don't do any kind of try to avoid those kind of positions or techniques that would. I mean, I guess sometimes you will end up in a crank. I've been caught in a crank before, and it kind of just it's not enough to tap. And I'm like,
yeah,
God, I can get out of it. I just get frustrated because I'm in it.
yeah.
And it's kind of annoying. And I think it's more on me. It's more on
Yeah.
me. It's a me thing. It's not a them thing. It's a me thing.
It's not
They're
just a you
probably
thing though. It's universally. Like, I mean, I
it's
remember
annoying
talking.
for sure. Yeah.
Well, it's I think it's more than that. Um, because I thought about this a lot. I'm like, why is it that like every black belt that I could think of who gets put into, even if they tap to him, they get irritated by him.
Yeah.
Like I remember rolling at a training session when I was out of town once, and this guy tells me his ribs hurting, so if I could take it easy on him, I'm like, sure, of course, man, we can just flow. And
Sure.
he puts me in a damn neck crank so damn fast, bro. And dude, I was so pissed. I'm like, first off, you turned it up on me. Second, it was a damn neck crank, and like popped my neck a little bit and kind of tweaked my neck a little bit. I
Yeah.
I was like, well, going easy's over. I went and put knee on belly. I was like, all right, well, you went after my neck. We'll go on your rib a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah.
But universally, I know that people do not like neck cranks. And I was thinking about this. there are some neck cranks, if applied, like they can definitely like, you know, you know that you're caught and you need to tap out to them, right? But a lot of times what happens is people get put into a neck crank. It's painful and it's not going to put you like unconscious or anything else. It's just a slow tugging of the neck, and it's an ill-applied move. And somewhere deep down, you understand that if you were to keep getting neck cranked like this, something bad is going to happen to your neck over time. Not immediately, but like over time.
Yeah.
And I think that people get annoyed because, when you get your neck jacked up, having your neck jacked up sucks. Like there's nothing worse than like a neck or low back issues, right? And so to me, it makes me sort of kind of go about like let's say if someone had you in a submission and they were risking injuring you to try to get the win. I think that most people somewhere deep down sort of see it as that like this person is possibly risking my neck by applying this sloppy neck crank so they can get the win, and I might get injured or they may hurt me in the process. And it's also painful, which makes it kind of annoying, right? That's kind of what I think kind of gets to people a little bit, whether they know it or not, because even remember talking to Laborio about this, right? Carlo Laborio, one of the greats of jiu-jitsu. And he was talking about how back in the day, people would put on like a really sloppy guillotine and they would just grab it and they would pull the neck. And it was just one of those things where if you did that, bro, afterwards, they were going to roll really hard with you because they felt like you were endangering their neck, endangering their safety and their health of their body to try to get a win over them versus applying a good, clean submission. And so I think that that's kind of what's going on. But back to your point, you kind of avoid that if you put someone in if you're trying to apply a neck crank, maybe use a different move in the gym sometimes.
Yeah.
It is what it is. Like everybody can do their thing, but when you're talking about longevity, which if you're listening to this podcast, I'm sure you're probably thinking more longevity's sake. Neck cranks aren't great for longevity, right? That's because eventually you're going to start doing damage to the discs. But if you put someone in a choke, communicate with them, and if they're not tapping to it, communicate with them so that you can avoid turning it into a crank and you can make your submissions better.
Yeah, I think they're maybe in the gym seen as like a dirty move, like something like
Of course.
You know what I'm saying? That's what makes it annoying, or that's what makes it kind of frustrating. It's like, oh, you're doing a dirty move. It's kind of like doing a can opener, right?
Well, a can opener is basically a neck crank.
Yeah, but like I think if you go for a can opener, like you're going for a dirty move. Like a lot of times people aren't trying to do a neck crank. It's just sometimes it turns into a neck crank essentially when it's not clean. I don't know. I think it's kind of seen as like, you're being dirty a little bit if you're doing it on purpose.
Why is it dirty?
Because it's a technique that could potentially hurt you.
Yeah.
And it's one of those that like, I think it requires you to go through some discomfort for you to tap. It's more of like, it's not like, it's one of those like neck cranks are ones that you can eat, but you can pay for it, right? You can take a neck crank and like possibly get out of it, but like, it's just one of those, it's like in a tournament, I mean, if a submission is a submission, I guess, but like, I think in practice, like we're trying to keep our training partners, healthy, and it can be seen as a dirty thing. I don't know. Like, I think that
I'm asking these questions because it's interesting to think about, right?
It is. But I think a lot of it's your intention. It's like, you're going to try to submit me regardless if you're going to injure me or not, number one, versus letting go and resetting. But the other one, like if you're just going for a neck crank, it's like, if you go for a submission, you rip it, you're kind of being an asshole in the gym. Like in the tournament, if that's what you want to do, cool. Sure. It's a tournament, what you signed up for. But in a gym practice, like if you're ripping submissions, you're kind of seen as dirty. That's kind of a dirty way to play it. I think if you are going for a neck crank off the rip, like you're going for a can opener, and it's not like I'm really trying a different submission, but it turns into a crank, that's different. But if you're going for a crank off the bat, we're trying to pop people's arms and stuff. There's an example of Sean Strickland, right? Remember Sean Strickland was fighting Orlando. They were grappling, and then Orlando Sanchez like grabbed his arm and just popped it real quick, and Sean got and Sean got pissed, and he's like, "What?" And I was like, "You could see both sides. He's trying to kind of keep his hands at bay."
There was a whole story beforehand where Sean was
getting chippy with each other.
Sean was like roughing up some other guys in the gym. And so Orlando stepped in, was like, all right, man, let's go.
Yeah. So again, what's your intention, right? I think it comes down to intention a lot of times. What are you trying to prove? What are you trying to achieve with this move? So
Yeah. When I think about legit submissions, I think a lot of times people don't see neck cranks as a legit submission. So when I think of like the sort of a working definition of a like legitimate submission, it's basically I put you into some sort of hold where you tap out because you know there is an immediate consequence if you don't. So for instance, if I put you into a arm bar, you know that your arm's going to be broken afterwards if you don't tap. If I put you into a heel hook, your knee's going to be shredded. If I put you into a choke, you're going to go unconscious. The neck crank is one of those ones where, and other submissions that sort of involve a lot of pain, they don't feel legit or they feel dirty because they don't have that immediate consequence, right? Like if someone puts you in a neck crank, you could eat a neck crank for a long time. It just, the issue is that if you spend a lot of time doing that over years and you eat a lot of neck cranks over the years, especially if they're sloppy neck cranks. If they're actually like a really well applied neck crank, it's a little different. You will have that immediate consequence. Like you'll feel that you need to tap out now.
mhm.
But most of the jiu-jitsu neck cranks, they're just like sloppy, ill applied chokes. When that happens, you don't have that immediate consequence. You're basically in a situation where you're tapping because you're tired of someone hugging on your neck for, sometimes you'll feel it for like 10 seconds. You're like, man, this person's still going. Well, like you're not there. You're not submitting me. You're just hurting my damn neck. And so sometimes you'll tap and it feels irritating because it didn't feel like it was a legit submission. You tapped because
Mhm.
you were tired of having your neck pulled on, but there wasn't that immediate consequence. You weren't forced to tap because you had to, or else you were tapping because you're like, well, this is uncomfortable. I don't want to be jacked up for the next 3 days, and I don't want to do unnecessary harm to my neck. So I guess I'll tap out, and because this guy won't let go of my neck.
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of why, like, a lot of people don't see most, sloppy neck cranks as a legit submission because it doesn't have that usual immediate consequence looming over top of you that forces you to tap out.
Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of like you pay for it later. So, yep. I hear you.
And the last one that we have, our seventh commandment, seventh rule, is thou shalt honor the golden rule submissions. The golden rule, right? It's a good one to follow.
Yeah.
Take care of your training partners like you would want them to take care of you. Damn, that's so simple, right? I mean, it kind of encompasses all the rules, but basically, again, the health of your training partner should be right there with the focus of executing the submission or any technique that you're doing. Because think about it, you cannot develop any skill without your training partners. You need them, they need you, and you guys do this dance where you're in a singular sport, but you're on a team. So it's like it's both, right? You're in a singular sport, but that requires a team to improve. And submissions are incredibly powerful and they could permanently injure someone, with one careless act. One careless submission could alter someone's life permanently. And so you want to apply them with a certain level of care and have reverence for those techniques, right? Because a lot of times we're just having fun and we can become so desensitized to what these things really are. But they're powerful moves and they can be dangerous if not applied correctly. And again, just another thing thinking about this, if you get the reputation of being that person in your gym, when it comes time to get a rolling partner, people are going to scatter like cockroaches. But if you're one of those people where even if you train really hard, if you're safe to train with, you'll never have issues getting a training partner, which means you'll be able to get better at jiu-jitsu because you'll always have training partners and people wanting to roll with you.
Mhm.
And so just a couple ideas to chew on there for, the golden rule. Just like, we say the golden rule to our kids, treat other people like you want to be treated. It's a damn good rule. And, when you're rolling with a training partner, take care of them like you want to be taken care of. Simple.
Yeah, I think that rule, the golden rule, kind of is above all of them, right? Because if you follow that one, then all the other rules
other
kind
ones
of
fall in
fall into place. Yeah, they all kind of. It's such an important thing. Like we say, don't break your choice, kind of thing. I think it's so important. And if you're seen as like a dirty grappler, people are not going to want to train with you. Or if you're seen as somebody that tends to pop people's ankles or hurts people, it's just you're not going to get better. People are going to play against you in a way that's really either they're going to try to hurt you back or really be aggressive, overly aggressive because they don't want to get hurt themselves.
Right.
They'll just avoid you altogether, and that's just super important. Like to get, I don't know. I mean, there's a time and place for being aggressive, of course. Um, they're also
Well,
like
you can
most.
be aggressive, you just
Well, yeah, yeah.
aggressive's fine. It's again, it's always keeping right there in the back of your mind. Like, I mean, like me and some of the guys, I remember when I was getting ready for the Nogi Worlds, I was trying to, help Marvin get tougher, just helping him build a little grit, right? So we
Yeah.
were doing some rounds and I mean, we're like clubbing each other, throwing each other into the walls, the whole deal. But there would still be a moment where maybe, he stopped for a second or we collided a little bit where, I would be, hey, are you all right?
Yeah.
Because again, it's aggression.
Controlled
Think about it
aggression,
this way.
I would say.
Like being competitive in the gym or even in a competition for that matter is just aggression without any sort of animosity, right? You're not
Mhm.
angry at the person. You don't hate
No.
them. You're just being aggressive to execute your technique. But that doesn't mean you can't make a quick stop or at the same time, while you're being aggressive to execute the technique, you can't be in the back of your mind thinking, making sure that, hey, I got to take care of this person to make sure that they're healthy and safe the whole time too.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, that's the number one thing is keeping each other safe, and because you want your friends, because most of us have relationships and friendships with people at the gym. We care about
Mhm.
them. It's not just like, oh, we're gonna see them again. We don't want to, and you feel bad. Like we've had people get injured for various reasons, man, and I've nobody ever feels good about an injury occurring to themselves or someone else, their training partner or someone they're training with. So I just
Shouldn't.
think, yeah, no, you shouldn't. You should not. And
Shouldn't.
if you do, then you're
It's probably some psychopath out there that's like,
yeah, yeah.
whatever, but
Yeah, I
yeah, you
tapped, I
shouldn't.
broke this many ankles, this and that. Like, no, man,
Yeah.
you're not cool if you do that. People aren't gonna like you if you're just hurting people.
I remember this old boxing coach, he said, years ago, he was said that, like, people, people spar in the gym like it's, a world title match because that's all they have,
Mm,
and so, it's like you get people where if they don't go out and compete and stuff sometimes it's like it's all they got, this is the one thing holding it together for them, they're dumping all their eggs in that basket, right?
yeah.
You don't wanna be that person.
No, take care of your training partners, and and I think it'll just be a better experience for yourself and everybody else.
Well, and you're gonna be healthy. You're gonna
Yeah.
be if your training partners know that you're safe, they're gonna be cool, and you'll be able to train for a longer period of time, and if you can train for a longer period of time without injuries, that means you can get better at jiu-jitsu because you can be consistent, right?
Yeah.
Because again, jiu-jitsu is not about short-term intensity, it's about long-term consistency. Consistency, my friend, is the thing, right? I feel like it's most things. Most success is built on doing the sort of boring and mundane. Basically, it's like doing the normal stuff for just unusual periods of time, right? So it's like it's not like there's magic to it sometimes. It's just like you just keep doing it for a long period of time. And most people, they lose heart. They do something for a little bit, it's not happening super easy, they give up. And again, so if you can avoid injury by not with submissions and everything else, and you keep training, that's going to be a good thing for you because you're going to be able to train jiu-jitsu longer with less interruptions.
Yeah.
Because again, if you're going into the gym going super hard, going after submissions, whatever, and you're constantly getting injured, it's like trying to get up to 70 mile an hour in your car, but you're constantly hitting the brake. It's going to be hard to do that when you're having to take breaks all the time because you're injured.
Yeah. Yeah. Training consistently, doing it deliberately and I think with intention, right? I think those are the keys. Yeah. Because consistent, you can go in, like you said, you can go to the gym and just kind of go through the motions. And then 10,000 hours goes by, right? And you're still not really that great. Right. I mean, so that's why the 10,000 hour rule is it comes with a nuance, comes with a grain of salt. Like you have to like really understand, hey, it's not just about doing the thing, but doing it consistently in a way that is intentional.
Right.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Thank you for being here. Hopefully you guys got something out of the podcast. Big thanks to our sponsors for helping make it happen. Charles Web CBD. Again, if you guys haven't checked them out before, check them out. You can look through all the different products, whether it's the CBD oils, they got CBN products, they've got functional mushroom products, a lot of different stuff. You can check them out at charlesweb.com and use the promo code Chewjitsu30 for 30% off the order. Also, thanks to our sponsor, Epic Roll, longtime sponsor. They make amazing jiu-jitsu gear and apparel. They've got everything from rash guards, skis, shorts, t-shirts, whatever you want, whatever you need. And good designs, great customer service. And they're at epicrollbjj.com. And the promo code is Chewjitsu20 for 20% off the order. Also, if you guys want to support the podcast directly and get a bunch of perks for it, you can check out our Patreon at patreon.com/the Jiu-Jitsu podcast. When you join up for a very inexpensive price, you'll be supporting the podcast and you get a bunch of stuff that we add into the back end there as a gift to you for supporting the podcast. And last but not least, guys, if you want to get my daily email, you can get that at jujitsu.net/join. When you sign up, you'll get access to my daily email, and you'll then get access to an ebook and video that I give away called Focus Jiu-Jitsu, which will help you be more focused with your training. I mentioned it earlier. Again, you can get that at jujitsu.net/join. So guys, with that said, thank you for being here. I think this is our first or second podcast in January.
Second of the new year.
Second. So, again, we're into January now, and with January, comes all we're going to do something, right? We use that arbitrary time of switching years to do something new, right? And not necessarily the worst thing to do. Remember that, when it comes to that stuff, it's not about doing anything magical. It's just about doing the really simple stuff. And for a lot of us, when we're trying to do something, it's about becoming the person first rather than doing anything crazy. What I mean by this is, let's say if it's jiu-jitsu, okay? Let's say if you're new, before you can become great at jiu-jitsu, you got to become the kind of person that goes to jiu-jitsu practice and you don't skip training, right? That's what you got to do first. If you want to get more into lifting, a lot of people do jiu-jitsu, then they realize they need to start lifting. Well, then you got to become the kind of person that goes to the gym and lifts weights. If you are dieting and you're starting to try to lose weight, then you got to become the kind of person that prepares their food in advance and they follow a plan. You got to become the person first. That's what's most important, because ultimately that's what you're doing. When you're getting better at jiu-jitsu, it's not just about, oh, I really learned all these cool techniques or something like that. You are becoming a different person in the process. I could tell you that, just as an example, 5 years ago, I started working with my coach, Eli. Started doing it because I wanted to lose weight and get lean, get in shape. That's completely aesthetics. That's all I wanted to do, is just get jacked and lean. And in the process, I've learned a lot about food. I've learned how to eat for performance and support different goals, whether I want to go up and down weight, doesn't matter. It's very systematic, and there's no mystery about it. There's none of the social media nonsense that, it's this one food that you just need to avoid and it's all your problems or this, right? No, it's like, I just eat the foods that I like, and I just eat them in varying amounts to make my weight go up or down. But one of the things that I remember developing with him, or what I've recently noticed, is that may not be a big thing for a lot of people, but this is a big thing for me. I can have ice cream in the house, and I can go in and I can take a scoop of ice cream. I can measure out a serving of ice cream, and I can eat it, and I can put the rest away. Now, that may not seem like a big deal to you, but back in the day, if I had a pint of ice cream, that pint was my serving size. That was the serving size, a pint. That was it, right? Now it's like one of these things where I can eat the pint, I can eat a serving of ice cream, put the rest away, and I can do that with no issues. That used to be a thing for me, because I remember when I started on the diet with him, I cleared out the entire house of anything that I was weak. And I told Jess, I was like, you got to hide anything that I might want to eat if you're going to keep it in the house, because I can't see it. Because if I see it, I'm going to eat it. And I'm going to eat a lot of it. And then now I've gotten to the point where my relationship with food has changed, where I can enjoy something that's, off the plan, that's, junk food or whatever, but I won't overindulge in it. And so, again, I've become the kind of person that can do that. So yeah, I was doing a diet, I was doing all this stuff, but in the process, I changed. Jiu-jitsu, obviously, we go through a lot of different changes in it when we're doing it. Happens with everything else we do. And so if you're getting into something new in January in 2026, remember, you have to become the kind of person required to make whatever it is happen that you want to have happen. So if you're trying to lose weight, you're trying to gain muscle, you're trying to win a competition, you have to become the kind of person that makes those things happen. So that typically means certain habits, certain activities that you have to do consistently. That's what's most important. This is why a lot of times when white belts come in, the big goal from their coach in the beginning is just keep training. Nothing else. Don't worry about anything else. Just keep training. We'll worry about everything else later. Just right now, just keep showing up. That's the hardest part for most people, right? With anything, is just showing up. So anyway, that's the idea, guys. So thank you for being here on this podcast today. I hope you guys are doing well, and we'll talk to you next week.